Hello and welcome to Skeindeer Knits. My name is Ellie and I am a Norwegian living and knitting in London. And you can find me on Instagram as Skeindeer, and I am Skeindeer Knits as a designer on Ravelry. And yeah, don't forget my Ravelry group, Skeindeer Knits, which is the best place to take part in knit-alongs and giveaways and just the chat around the community that is Skeindeer Knits. Welcome to my podcast, my knitting talk show, my whatever this is, where I'm supposed to be talking about knitting every week, but due to a plethora of circumstance, I have not been doing that for a very long time, the majority of this year, let's be honest. I am hoping to finally be in a place where I can be here a little bit more frequently again, famous last words, but we're gonna try that. So that's basically my message to those of you who are new here. To returning viewers, you will probably be like, where is she sitting? What is this? Has she moved and not told us? How dare she do things without our permission? I haven't. I'm gonna get more into this in the end of this episode so that people who are only here for the knitting talk don't have to be bored out of their brains too early. But suffice to say, I have not moved. So we'll just pick up on this one at the very end, if that's all right with you guys. But I hope you enjoy the new kind of setting, if anything. And yeah, knitting. I am still running a knit along, the Skeindeer Knits garment KAL, that is still running very strong. And guys, I am so much enjoying seeing you guys knit my patterns, my garment patterns, all the cardigans and sweaters, and I do also have a skirt pattern which is also eligible. Yeah, it's really, it sounds like, I don't know what it sounds like. It's the best part about designing is when people are knitting up your designs and you get to see them and they tag you on Instagram and it's like, oh, don't stop doing that, please don't stop. It's the best part. So yeah, that is going until the end of the year. I am already thinking about maybe, hey, if we can do a second one. But yeah, we'll see. Maybe there'll be different rules and different criteria. I don't know. Too soon to tell, to be honest. But anyway, thank you so much for taking part in that. For people who wonder how to take part, kind of all you have to do is to either or both take part in the chatter on Ravelry or post on Instagram and tag my post with the hashtag. I'm gonna put it somewhere. Yeah, I will be also opening a finished objects thread on Ravelry where you can actually be in a price draw, but participation is simply just engaging in the whole thing. And price draw is based on having finished something at the end of the year, and the only really criteria is that it is one of my garment patterns and that it is started and finished in 2020, and you can make as many as you want, same pattern, different pattern, as long as they're mine and done. So that's a lot of words to just explain that. I have been pretty good this year. I only run one knit along, which is very unlike me, and I don't like it. So I thought let me backtrack a little bit here. Every year for the past 3 years, I have been running the Skeindeer Knits Mitten Club. It's just called the Mitten Club, actually. I started one in the autumn of 2017, repeated the success in 2018 and also last year in 2019, which was a pattern subscription club. You bought the bundle, you got one pattern to begin with, and then every month I would add a pattern up until the end of the year, although last year was a bit delayed, so you also got one in January. I couldn't do that this year because of the PhD. I just had to choose it away. I could have obviously just kind of done what I've been doing the past few years. I can do that like that, but I always want to do something new every year, and I just knew that I couldn't really do justice to that. So we're skipping this year. And I honestly don't know if I'm going to be doing it the exact same way. Well, probably not going to be doing it the exact same way next year. So that's been 3 runs of the Sarby Mitten Club, and a lot of people have still been knitting a lot of my Sarby Mitten patterns lately, and that's really nice. So even though I don't have a new club this year, I have gathered as much as that a lot of people are still really into knitting Sarby mittens in the autumn, is to have a knit along where all 3 of the clubs are eligible. So you can choose any pattern or all the patterns in my 3 Sarby Mitten clubs and take part. I will, by the time this episode goes up, open up a Ravelry thread for it, prepare some hashtags. I was thinking hashtags Sarby Mitten clubs I don't think that's taken. We can use that. Sarbu mitten clubs. Selbu, however you want to pronounce that. I am a local Sötrande, so we say Sarbu. That's just how that goes. Basically, the only criteria is that you have to have started the mittens in October or later this year and finished them by the end of the year. So we're going to have 2 KALs that are going to run at the end of the years. And of course, as ever, if you have prices that you want to donate to the podcast, then yeah, that will be a nice way for me to just kind of show people stuff that you guys make and sell, maybe in your Shopify or Etsy or whatever you do. I don't know what people do. But that's an option as well. Otherwise, I do have a little bit of a price stash and I could always get stuff myself to give away. So we'll sort that out when we get there. I tend to just donate as many prizes as I have at the moment. So I can't really say how many winners they're going to be. But yeah, you can enter with as many pair of mittens you want to make, and that's that basically. And feel free to double dip. I know Patricia of Knitography is running some sort of Sarbu mitten class thing, and I've seen a lot of my patterns pop up because of that. So yeah, you could. That's a great way of taking part in both if you want to do that. And yeah, that is all the knit-alongs that I have to talk about today too. Still spent a lot of time on it though, but yeah. What do I have to talk about knitting? She asks herself while stopping thinking. I have knitted a lot. I have knitted a lot since, well, this whole lockdown, this whole break, this whole year. But a lot of it is designs. A lot of it is gifts. And for a number of reasons, it's not just like, I am struggling with fitting it into whenever I have time to record a podcast. It doesn't seem like, oh, well, I can talk about this now, but by the time this episode goes up, it's too early to put that thing in there because someone's going to receive that, or it's a design that hasn't come out yet. Things like that. So I am actually going to try something new. And I think you guys are really going to like it. So forgive me for not including everything in this episode. It will be on this channel. And I hope it works, because in my brain, in my head, in my mind, it's good. I am excited. And I think it's going to make it easy for you guys to find past content again, because it does happen that I get the odd question from someone about, hey Ellie, I remember you talked about so and so on your podcast, can you tell me which episode it was? And I'm like, no. I have no idea. I am so sorry, but your memory is as good as mine. But that's probably not true. Your memory is probably better than mine. So I think this new idea of mine, if it works, it's gonna just make it a lot easier for you to find previous content. Anyway, I have said too much. Let me talk to you guys about what I can share. And that is 1 finished object and 1 work in progress. I know, very modest for me, but the finished object you are of course looking at right now. It is the Jan sweater. Okay, where do we begin with this just gorgeous blouse? I'm just gonna spend a lot of time on this blouse in this episode because, oh, has it been an experience? It's been an overwhelmingly positive one for a number of reasons. First of all, the Jan sweater is designed by Susan Crawford. She is a brilliant vintage recreation designer. So she will often take old vintage patterns and recreate them, expand the size range and put them into books. And I think that's really cool. So yeah, the Jan sweater is part of one of these books. Here she is. This is the Jan sweater, and this has been on my knitting list since 2015. In 2015, I had this odd weekend job at Knit with Attitude, which I will also be talking about. But I should have talked about that already. Hold that thought. I had the odd weekend job there at the time because, long story short, a friend of mine had a weekend job there. And when she couldn't take that job, I would just do it for her. And lucky me was doing that. Whoa, hey sun, you liked my new setup. The sun doesn't bother me as much now. But yeah, I was really lucky to have a weekend job when Susan Crawford was gonna have a talk at Knit with Attitude. And this was at a time where my budget in life could not afford attending things like knitting talks. So I was beside myself that I could attend this and listen to Susan talk about her upcoming vintage Shetland book, which is amazing. I have that book upstairs, so I've said too much about the setup now. So that whole thing just made me very curious about her books, her patterns. I was already a bit of a like, I wanted to explore vintage at the time, and I just, I guess, didn't feel, you know, brave enough or ready or whatever at the time. So this was on my radar. I'm pretty sure local knitter Siobhan was there wearing this top, and I was like, yeah, I want that, I need that. So that's a long while to have a pattern in your queue and not knitting it, because I guess I'm like most people in that I see a new shiny pattern and I think I need to cast that on right away, and I forget what's been in my queue for half a decade. So I finally got on it, and yeah. Here's actually, well, a photo of the original pattern. You can see that. Oh, maybe we'll have my face. You can. It can maybe focus. Who knows if that was in focus. Okay, I'm gonna put the book down so I can talk properly about what I actually did with this blouse. First of all, yarn, I used Knitting for Olive Merino, which is a light fingering weight, non-superwash, very springy merino, very soft. It's just lovely. I bought this at Gartopia in Oslo when I was there in December, January, which was the last time I was in Norway, which is a long time ago. It's the longest I've ever been without going home. Thanks, Corona. Yeah, so I had that in stash with no plans really until I realized this pattern's been in my queue for a while. That yarn would be really nice, and it's the right quantity. Just do it. And I did it. I am partial to knitting in the round. I know the advantages of knitting flat and seaming. I know the advantages of knitting in the round. So ultimately for me, it just comes down to what I prefer, and I do strongly prefer to knit in the round. And gotta be perfectly honest, as a Norwegian where we constantly knit in the round and have done so for like ages, the argument of like greater structure when you seam is just like a little bit overemphasized. It's true, just not the be all end all of knitting. So for me, it was a very given that I was going to be knitting this in the round. And it's usually pretty easy when you do that with vintage patterns. You basically just double the stitch count, but you tend to want to subtract 4 stitches because of the selvages. So when you seam 2 flat pieces together, you're effectively seaming together the end stitches so that they are on the inside. So if knitting in the round, you really don't need those 4 stitches, the 2 on each side. Did I do that? Probably not. I probably included them, I don't know. But that's often something that you might want to do. And the thing is that although, like, yeah, I doubled the stitch count, I did double the stitch count that was supposed to be after the rib, not before the rib. And I only realized that after having spent a whole week knitting just the rib, because it was on very tiny needles, lots of stitches, and 1 by 1 rib. And so the rib is a little bit loose. I'm gonna just get up so you can see it. So yeah, this is the rib. It isn't that sort of really singed in the waist rib that you often get with vintage patterns. It is quite relaxed, honestly. Usually the blouse part is supposed to be the loose bit, and then the rib is sort of holding in, but I am such a couch potato. It's really comfortable. So while I may have regrets about that mishap, it's not very big regrets at all. So I really don't mind. It was not worth frogging for and doing it again, because I'm not that into knitting rib. So yeah, this is a 1930s blouse, if that wasn't obvious. I feel like it's a very obvious 30s style thing with that sort of kind of, yeah, muffin puff sort of silhouette, which I really like, even though I didn't quite achieve it given the whole rib thing. But yeah, so I knitted that in the round and very quickly found out that this eyelet pattern is incredibly memorizable. It was no problem at all getting it done. I don't think I made many mistakes, and if I did, it was very easy to just drop stitches and put them in the right place. Super easy to follow. Some eyelet patterns can be very like deceitful and you think they're easy and they're not, but this one was very easy, and you actually don't even mirror the decreases with SSK. They're all knitted together. And again, if I'm going to get closer, you can sort of see that doesn't have really any negative impact on the whole symmetry thing. So not bad at all. Oh, I love this so much. And of course I adore this color. Knitting for Olives Burgundy, or Merlot, or whatever it's called, is the perfect burgundy. If I could choose just one shade of burgundy, it would totally be this. So yes, so that was one modification, obviously doing it in the round. Now what did I do when I got up here? Did I just start doing it flat and then seam together in the shoulders and then, you know, fit in the sleeves? Like, that would make sense, right? Like, that would make sense. That would be the thing most people would do if they would just modify to knit in the round. It's not what I did. I wanted to experiment a little bit. There's a method of construction that I have been wanting to try, that in my head should work out, and it does. And I'm very excited. And of course, as I have done it, I've now found out that I'm, of course, not the first person who thought about this. There's a lot of people who have done this. Now I'm one more person doing this as well, and I really would like to see more people doing this. So yeah, I basically knitted together the body and the sleeves. I done the sleeves in the round up to here, both of them. And then I joined them on the same needle as the body, like you do when you do a raglan or a yoke. But I still wanted this satin sleeve silhouette. Yeah, so I had to plan a lot. I had to get my spreadsheet out, and what I do, try to think of this, is I create a bunch of columns. I create one for my body stitch count. Usually I'll just take half the body, so like maybe just the front or just the back. They're the same on this one. There is no difference in the front and back. So that's what the same means. Why did I feel like I needed to explain that? Anyway, and then I will also do the same for one of the sleeves. So I'll put the stitch count at the top or the bottom, depending if you want to just do the table bottom up or top down. I did it bottom up in this case. I put at the bottom. So I'll have one column for half the body, one column for one of the sleeves. I'll have a column next to each of these columns where I write the stitch count that I want to subtract. So every row in this little table represents a round in my knitting. So I will then maybe, to begin with, say that I want to remove 2 stitches, one on each side here of the body, one on each side of the sleeve. Maybe every other row for the sleeve all the way to the top. But for the body, I want to do it every round all the way up to here, and then I will start doing every other round, maybe up to here, until I have the stitch count that I'm happy for the width of my shoulders. You have to kind of like tweak all these things, so obviously you end up with everything in the right place up here. Then I will put stitches aside for the sleeves and graph those into the very top of the shoulders later when working the shoulders flat, which in this case just happened to be the rib here. This probably sounds very complicated, and I know not everyone's gonna like get to wrap their heads around this sort of method. It probably is easier if you're already a designer, because this is kind of how I grade. But yeah, it's a very cool way to do the sleeves and the body simultaneously, instead of having to fit them in and stuff, which is a skill that I should learn that I am avoiding so much. Which is just really ironic, because I always encourage people to not avoid things that you want to learn. But lo and behold, I do it myself. It's like, we all do this. But either way, I am really pleased that it worked. So I'm going to just like show my armpit up in your faces for a bit now and show you just how this looks. I included a stitch between the body and the sleeve here that I knitted purl twisted, which is not my favorite stitch actually. It's my least favorite stitch, but it did make it look quite nice. So it looks like these bits have been sewn together, but actually this was all done in one piece. This is really cool. So you can see here I was decreasing on every round on the body side, but then I started doing it less and less until I didn't do it at all, which is why it's straight up here. Whereas for the sleeve I've always done it every other round. Until we got up here and I stopped working the sleeve entirely, but I did still work the body back and forth for the rib. And then I did a really terrible job. What is that, makeup? I don't know. I did a really terrible job of joining this up in a sort of seamless way as well, which I honestly do not recommend. Regrets? Not exactly, but I have noticed since wearing this just now that I do not like these little straps showing. So I actually did not cut off the end yarn for when I did the rib. Hang on. I did not cut off. It's woven in, but I didn't cut it because I suspected that I actually may want to sew these bits a little bit more together. So maybe up to here. So then my my bra straps are a bit hidden because I feel a little bit exposed right now. And it's dropping quite a bit in the back, as you can see. So I think that's just something I'm going to want to do. Just shut it just here. I think I'm going to be quite happy with that. Yeah. So I might do that after this episode. Could have done it before, but nah. I think that's all I have to say about the Jan sweater. I did not modify much else, but arguably I kind of rewrote the entire pattern because I didn't really follow any of the instructions. I followed the chart. I had the general same stitch counts, but not really when I was up to here. I wanted a different shoulder width. I tend to look at the shoulder width for the smallest size very often, because by the time I'm up here, my shoulders are not very broad. Like, my bust measurements suggests bigger, but my shoulders just aren't bigger. This is the whole like sizing thing that is something we talk a lot about in kind of the size inclusive designer community, which is often that people in the larger end of the size scale tend to find that clothes that they buy in shops or that they knit for themselves or sew for themselves, they have to alter what they make because very often the shoulders are really big for big bust sizes. Equally, people on the smaller end find that for the small bust sizes, the shoulders are really quite narrow, but their shoulders may not be, and it's just like a weird thing in sizing where, honestly, as much as, you know, length and width are independent, so are actually shoulder width and bust size, but we tend to choose sizes based on bust size. So all those things that follow with that, with length or with shoulders, you kind of have to modify a bit for yourself, for your individual body, because we're all different, and that's cool. So that's something that I always do now. I'll just look at the shoulders and I'll think I'll do that differently for my fit. And this was one way I found would work easier. It's actually quite easy to do with satin sleeves, even if you follow the pattern. So if I was going to do the front piece flat, I could still keep decreasing for the bust until I was here. It doesn't matter how you do that, because you do it bottom up, is actually easier to modify for shoulder width than if you were to do it top down. I think that about wraps up the Jan sweater by Susan Crawford. Hi Susan, if you're watching. I don't know if you are, but yeah, it's a really nice blouse. I'm really pleased that I finally have it. It fits in my wardrobe so well. It is just right up my alley. I am so happy with the color. I like the fit. I will be fixing this whole situation. Oh, it's so comfortable. It's so soft. This whole knitting for olive yarn. Yes, yes. Full score, absolutely loving it. Yeah. So what else sort of knitting stuff do we have to talk about? I actually started picking up an old work in progress after finishing this one. I was really tempted to cast on another blouse. I want to show you actually which one I did want to cast on. All right, I finally found it. This one. I want to do this in that beautiful crimson red yarn of Olin that I bought in Dublin last year. I think that would be amazing. I don't even know if I want to have the accent color. I think just red would be really cool. Now the construction here is actually so that you started at the bottom of the back and you knit it all the way up. And then you come around at the top and you knit it down again. So no matter how I twist and turn this pattern, I am actually going to have to knit flat and seam. There is no way about it, because otherwise you don't get that beautiful seamlessness over the shoulders here, how it works into the body. It's like, it's a whole thing. There is just no escaping. There's a really nice illustration in the vintage version that shows the construction. You can see that here. Yeah, I heard the focus goes. I'm gonna assume this is in focus. So that I think is gonna be interesting. I'm just gonna be cursing a lot while doing it because it's gonna be a lot of purling, But what I could do is do it on the machine. I could do the rib by hand at the very end, because I'm actually not super into the idea that the rib is going to be cast on one side and bound off on the other. I would love to actually provisionally cast it on, do it all on the machine, and by the time I've come all the way around to the front, just pick up the stitches and do them myself in rib in the round. Eyelets are really easy to do on knitting machines. Increases are easy to do on knitting machines. This is doable. Have I been saying this a lot? I can do it on the machine, and I just don't. Yes, true. But I've been toying with the idea of like putting up this massive table here and like cooking on the knitting machine when I'm using it, taking away when I don't, obviously, because, you know, consideration. And yeah, I think that would be really cool. Because then I don't have to purl, and I would still have a blouse. I'll have a think about it. Right, before works in progress, the thing that I picked up after finishing this instead of casting on new things, because I am good sometimes. I am in a book that is supposed to come out in October. I don't know exactly when, but I'm gonna provide links below so that you know. I am in Knit with Attitude's 10th anniversary book, alongside some pretty amazing designers. I can't believe I am alongside them at all. That's pretty incredible. Also, it's published by Lane, and I have, try as I might, never been published in Lane. I really quite like Lane magazine. There's quite a lot of issues of them right back here. Actually, it's all of them, and I am so excited that they are coming back. I had reasons to suspect that they would, but I'm not gonna say why. But like, yeah, I am really happy. I'm gonna get their 10th issue when that's out, and just, yeah. But for now, I am in a book that they're publishing for Knit with Attitude, which is one of my local yarn shops here in East London. And just, I'm really happy with the pattern as well. And I'm one of those weird people, like I was like, obvious, but I was also like this in university. I would write an essay, I would submit it and be certain that it was the worst essay ever. And I did not want to look at the feedback when I got it. I did not want to see the mark that I got, but I would click immediately, of course, and be like, I got a really high mark. I got the highest mark in my class. I'm like, I thought it was so bad. And I managed to convince myself that what I've done is really, really bad. And I'm exactly in that mood now with the pattern. I was like, oh, it's just a terrible sweater. And I was like, it's just a chunky yarn. It's like, nobody's going to like it. And like, everyone have loved it. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I mean, that's, yeah, I mean, I did like work really hard on it. And it's like, I love the yarn. I love the shape. I love the fit. I love the feel. I love the fabric. So yeah, I knitted a chunky weight colorwork sweater. So it's really quick, all over colorwork, but very simple, bold pattern. And it's in pelt wool. The chunky pelt wool called Blåme by Hillesvåg. I love their pelt wool yarn so much. And if you don't know, pelt wool is a mixed breed between the Swedish Gotland sheep and the old Norwegian Sparso or Vilse. I'm not sure the differences. Okay, I have a book about that. And it's just the most, just oh, that yarn. It's shiny, it's woolly, it's fuzzy, it's sleek. It's just like, you know when you hold wool together with silk mohair? It's just like that, but it's just coming straight out of the sheep. I love pelt wool. I absolutely adore it. So it's really, it's in burgundy. Slightly different shade than this one, a little bit more red with grey pops, and it's just, and the model is gorgeous, and it was photographed in Abney Park next to Knit with Attitude, which is my favourite park in London because it's a cemetery and it looks super like gothic and like somewhere you want to do like a black metal album photo shoot. So I was really happy with all of that, all those decisions, and I can't wait to see it, and that's going to be out soon. So just massive shout out to Knit with Attitude, because I honestly don't think I would have been a designer if Maya from my hometown, who runs Knit with Attitude, hadn't asked me if I wanted to teach colour work there, which prompted me to develop my Sarba mitten design, which is my first proper pattern. And here we are today, guys. Yeah, so that's all very full circle. I seem to be referencing them a lot in this episode. I haven't been there since lockdown, so And I was so looking forward to a book launch party, but I guess we're gonna just not do that given everything, gestures to the world. Yeah, okay. Finally, let's talk about what I have been working on since binding off this blouse. You may remember that last year I was really keen on the idea of making myself a festive jumper. In fact, I had set my eyes on a very specific colorwork sweater pattern that is a Christmas sweater, and worked very quickly on the sleeves in the lead up to Christmas, but obviously Christmas gift knitting took over and I didn't finish it in time. So this year, guys, this year it will happen. So what I had done since just letting it hibernate and marinate, I had done the sleeves and the body ribs at the bottom hem. I had not done any color work for the body. I just started and put it away. And this is the amount of progress that I have done just the past couple of days. Look at that. Now, you may think this is super cozy and lovely and cute, but I was watching Ratched while knitting all of this, so it has a slightly more sinister connotation for me, but never mind. I am loving this so much, and it's all kind of just leftover yarns, except for the red. The red is a intact skein of Hillesborg Usk, which I love, whereas the greys, both the dark and the light, is Roma Finul. I don't know why it took me so long to remember the name of my favorite yarn, but there you go. It was all just leftovers from all sorts of projects because I always use these shades of grey for most of my knitting. So scrappy project. I thought this was going to be the final length, but I actually have one more repeat of this bottom one here before I'm at the same point as the sleeves. So let me show you the sleeves as well. So the sleeves that I did last year. And so if you hold them together with the body, you can see obviously the section that I've got left to do, but you can also see, you can start to see like how the sweater is going to look in all its glory. And oh, it is so festive. It is just, oh, doesn't this make you happy? I am just beside myself. Yeah, I have modified it quite a bit. I almost feel like, I don't usually say this, but I almost feel like the yarn substitution was a modification because the yarn recommended was a DK weight alpaca wool blend, which is quite full, whereas I substituted it with a woolen spun 100% wool kind of sport to fingering weight. So it's quite lofty and light and a very thin fabric. So it has a very different feel than the photographed sample. The other modification I did is that I wasn't super keen on this whole heart business happening here. Now, hearts is a huge Christmas motif thing in Norway, so it's not that. It's just I wasn't into these charts. I like that one more than that. But so I knew I wanted the body to be shorter, so instead of actually starting the color work here, which I normally would have, so it would have been this long body, I started it down here, but I just skipped these two because I would rather have more moose or reindeer or whatever this is. It's a Skeindeer is what it is. I wanted more of those than simply skipping them for the heart weird thing. So I may still be working the hearts when I get up to here. We'll see. When choosing between hearts and deermoose, I just know what my heart wants, and it wants deermoose. So this is it for now. I am very close to joining the sleeves to the body. Just need to do that last chart that I'm sort of awkwardly pointing at with my pinky, and then I am sure it's going to be quite quick, and I am excited to have my first Christmas sweater, and hopefully after that I may start working on my Christmas cardigan as well. I was working on a Christmas cardigan by Tori Seierstad that I started earlier this year because I didn't put it on my make now because I have been wanting to make it since she released it eons ago. And yeah, I'm probably also going to modify that a lot because I am like way off in row gauge, so it's, yeah. Also that cardigan just makes me think of The Expanse, because I was watching that a lot when knitting on it. It's funny how that happens. I just think a lot about what I watch when I knit something when I look at it again or knit on it again. It is, I'm sure I'm not the only one. Anywho, for those of you curious about the pattern, I did get it in this Rauma booklet. I can't tell you how to get it in English, but you are free to use my Ravelry group in the Norwegian Knitting and Help Desk thing group thread to ask people who may know where to get them translated. This is the sweater that I am working on. A little bit misleading that like this much of the sweater, literally this much, is tucked into her skirt, so it is actually as long as the sleeves. Unless you do as I did and skip these 2 sections, then it ends up being a smidge shorter about down to here, which is perfect for me because I quite like cropped lengths, but this one's going to be a little bit longer than cropped. Maybe more so like this because it does sit lower than my waist. Obviously my waist is here. Oh, I love this. I love this so much. Anyway, we're done with this blouse. I need more of these blouses, honestly. Anyway, this is the demo booklet. It is number 277. So, just in case you wanted to know. So that leaves me to acquisitions. And when I'm done with acquisitions, I'll be talking about the whole life stuff that you see around me that you may be wondering what is going on. Yeah, so acquisitions. Basically, so that means that those of you who are not interested in acquisitions or my life, rude. Thanks for watching, I guess. More knitting to come next time. But yeah, acquisitions is obviously also knitting related. I have been both buying something and receiving something. There's some overlap there. First of all, I can't really help myself when I see that Pink Hazel's gonna have a shop update, even though I have more bags by her than I can count, and I need to stop. I need to be stopped. But I actually missed out on this bag last shop update that she had, and when I saw that she had made up some more, I was like, oh, I'll just put on my alarm clock just in case. I'm actually gonna put on 2. Can never be too careful. And I got it. This bag, I have not actually used it yet because I'm like literally that excited. It's this beautiful Firefly bag in the large size. She's got quite a lot of big sizes and it's so pretty. Her fabric selection and just, you know, meticulous sewing technique of just utter perfection. Not that I know anything about sewing, but I can tell when something's good. It's just next to none. Like oh, and look, the inside, it's just, oh. It feels really good. It's sturdy, it's beautiful. Got a little leather handle so you can knit and walk around, you know, as you do. So nobody's shocked that I really wanted this. It's just kind of right up my alley. I don't know what project's gonna live in here yet. I do know that I need to get rid of some bags that I do not use anymore. Not this one, but you know, older bags. So I've been talking a lot about doing a de-stash, and then I decided not to do it because of lockdown. I figured who's gonna want to receive anything from anyone now that there's lockdown, but I think what's happened is that a lot of us actually sending out a lot of things to each other, and I don't think that's, you know, any risk, certainly not anymore from this household. So I might still do that. I will let you know on Instagram when I do. No plans so far, but anyway, that was just a fleeting thought that I had. I love this bag. It's gorgeous, but also when you're a returning customer for the nth time, people start recognizing you, and Annette from Pink Hazel, of course, did and included a little bit of an extra tweet for me that I of course will be showing you as well because it's matchy. Look at that. And the thing is, I was looking at it when I was checking out. I was like, do I have time to browse more? Oh, I like that one. No, I gotta go to my cart. I'm not gonna miss this one. So I'm really happy that she thought of including it. I don't know how she knew that I wanted it other than the obvious similarity. It's a Notions bag, at least that's what I'm using it for, because it's almost the exact same dimension as my now retired Notions bag that was like some kind of freebie in a knitting magazine. It's like this big and has just one pocket, whereas this one is a bit taller and has 2 pockets. So in the front one, I just keep things like my needle gauge thing, my kind of MacGyver crochet hook rescue set, I also have my mum's old kind of ruler, needle gauge, measure your gauge kind of weird thing. I just really like it. I'm supposed to have my measuring tape in here as well, but I'm pretty sure I put it in the wrong pocket, which is why I can't ever have things with 2 pockets. But yeah, I also keep my kind of go-to crochet hook. This is like one of those Knit Pro or Clover or one of those that you just really want to chew, but they taste awful. Do not chew these. Do not recommend. But yeah, I always carry a size C 2.75mm crochet hook with me. It's good for everything, rescuing stitches to steeking to... I never really am too fussed about the size of the crochet hook that I use for steeking. I just kind of do. I also keep some bits of chunky yarn in here because they're very good for setting stitches aside. Whatever needles I was working on that I just didn't bother to put back in my needle stash. Apparently now this is a section of what's in my notions bag. I hope you enjoy. A lot of like sewing darning needles and that measuring tape that should have been in the other pocket. Always have a bit of scrap yarn. You never know when you're gonna need it. And also like lots of stitch markers. Yeah, that's my notions bag basically. And now I have a gorgeous notions bag to put all these things inside. The past one was alright, but I absolutely love this one. That's what's in my little purchase thingy. Now, I am actually expecting some yarn to come in the mail today. I don't know when, probably not in time for me to finish recording this, but it's basically just a lot more Hillesvåg yarn. It's all lamb's wool. I think maybe also some of the new Verde or Vidde yarn. I think it's the Vidde that I got. Whichever one is the pelt wool lamb's wool blend in Aran weight yarn, that is going to be a perfect substitute for Let Low Be sweaters if you find that a little bit on the scratchy side, because let's be honest, it is. And when it's coming from me, yeah, it is. I still love that yarn though. It's a great like outerwear. Yeah, love Let Low Be. Anywho, I have been given a book to review. Yes. So book reviews are always a bit scary because I'm like, oh no, I've been asked to talk about this thing. Oh dear, the pressure is on. So pardon me if I am more awkward than usual when just talking about this book. But anyway, this book was given to me by the author herself, Jessie Ostermiller, and it is the Colorwork Bible. Now, I am, you know, a simple girl and just assume this would be a book on stranded knitting, because a lot of the times we refer to stranded knitting as colorwork. But colorwork is really an umbrella term for a lot of colorwork techniques, which include things like, you know, intarsia, mosaic knitting, slip stitches, of course double knitting, but even just knitting stripes and 2-color brioche. And this book is truly a colorwork Bible because it includes all of the above. Not just stranded knitting, and I thought that was really, really cool. So, where do we begin with this book? I'm just going to give you a little bit of an outline. I think that will be a fair sort of teaser or taster of this book. It gives you a good color theory section, which any good color work book will begin with, and I always appreciate that because I never remember any of it, so that's awesome. It talks a lot about yarn choice, which I will get back into kind of maybe what my kind of, I guess, points of improvement is, though it ended on a high note. Then it talks about the different techniques: stripes, stranded, slip stitch and mosaic, intarsia, double knitting and brioche. And then the other half is all patterns. It's actually quite a 50-50 technique and pattern book. And you get anything from accessories to garments. It's really quite comprehensive, and I think that's going to be a reoccurring term for this book. There's also a really nice glossary at the back of the book for any terms that you want to have explained. So it's just overall very comprehensive. I'm going to read the blurb at the back. So yeah, get comfortable. The Colorwork Bible is an updated and modern exploration of beloved colorwork techniques in knitting. From the popular designer Jessie Ostermiller, colorwork has been a true love since they first picked up the needles almost 20 years ago. This indispensable guide also features 12 original designs to help you show off your newly mastered knowledge. The opening chapters will help you understand color and choose your yarns. You'll then go on to explore stripes, stranded, slip stitch, mosaic, intarsia, double knitting and brioche. Each chapter offers a mini workshop on a popular colorwork technique, tips and tricks for success and setup, and common pitfalls to avoid, making this volume a must-have for both beginning knitters and those with hundreds of projects under their belts. Perfect your colorwork techniques and create beautiful modern knitwear. And yeah, that about sums it up. And that was kind of what I took away from this book, flicking through it as well. The only thing that I would say was I guess, experienced as a drawback to begin with was when I was looking at the yarn section, and the yarn section focuses more on how different yarns are colored. So if they are speckled, striped, self-striping, if they're variegated, if they're tonal, if they're solid, and talks about kind of how to use them color-wise. Now, my preferred focus when talking about stranded color work, which is just one of the many sections in this book, is that you tend to have better results, especially as a beginner, but also in general, with non-superwash, woolen spun, wool yarns. Whereas this book largely uses hand-dyed superwash yarns that are quite defined. And I guess I found the sections on the sort of woolen spun and sticky yarns and defined versus undefined yarns kind of sort of neutral about the whole thing. Like, it doesn't take sides. It's just sort of like, here's an aspect of that, here's an aspect of that. It doesn't really like tell you the answer, which I guess I would have, but I also kind of appreciate that it doesn't. But then it does use superwash yarns for the whole part without kind of maybe discussing, it does discuss it. And here's the thing, this is kind of where I came around full circle, because I was thinking about this. I'm like, well, I am reading that in light of all the books that I've got that talks about color work and goes into the history of it and tells you the story and what sort of yarns have traditionally been used, and there's all this tradition that I am obviously really into. But how many books about that do we have by now? Like, we got so many books about that, and this book is actually something quite different. It's trying to be something different, and quite successfully so, because this book isn't trying to appeal to those of us who already have all those books about how colorwork's traditionally been used. He uses hand-dyed yarns the way that we do that. If you open up your Instagram app on knitting, that is all over the place. So I'm like, I see what you're doing. This is offering something new and is reaching a different target audience. So for instance, like this sweater is kind of a classic example of that. This is the sort of stuff that you will tend to see nowadays. I'll hide my face so you can hopefully get it in focus. So I kind of came around full circle, like I said, and like really came to appreciate that finally there's a colorwork book that isn't like all the other colorwork books, and it is really comprehensive. Like, it's really comprehensive. That was just the one thing that I was left with, because every time I was flicking through and looking at things, I'm like, oh, it mentions that. Oh, it mentions that. Yeah, that's true. All of it. So here's just in the stranded colorwork section. I'm just going to read you the headlines for kind of troubleshooting, I guess. Is your gauge too tight? How to do stranded purling. You stitched the wrong color. Are the traps or the floats, where you caught the floats, are they showing through? Have you dropped a stitch? What if you got 3 colors per row? Are you getting lost in the chart? The float's too tight, which is something I'll probably put a bit earlier, because I think that's often the biggest problem with beginning color work. Did you forget to catch a float? It says trap, I don't know why, but maybe that's a better word. Combining stranded knitting and intarsia. Any question that you may have about color work, not just stranded, but that too, all of the color works, this book kind of has the answer. There are things that I would prioritize differently, but it is really comprehensive. And for a not super huge book, I am quite impressed by that. The different sections are quite short, so again, I think it does a really good job of reaching those of us who are used to things being quite quick and instant, and we spend a lot of time online, and it's just, I'm overall very impressed. I'm really grateful that I got this book. I think I will be referencing it a lot. if I ever dabble into like, I don't know, slip stitch or mosaic, which is something I've kind of steered a bit away from. Same thing truly with also in Tarzan to some extent double knitting, though I do a bit of that. It's going to be really good to have this book and be like, you know, if I've had problems with one of those things, I can look it up in here and get the answer from someone who has actually done all these things for a number of years. So yeah, overall, thumbs up. I don't rate books, I don't do that, but I will tell you that is a good book and I'm really happy that it was sent to me, and I hope this wasn't a too incomprehensive review of a very comprehensive book. Alright, that is all I have to say about my acquisitions. So the last bit of this episode is going to be about my very boring life. So stick around for that if you're interested. If not, doodles. I feel like I need to explain this now. Because I'm sure lots of people were like, oh my god, Ellie, have you moved? My goodness, I have not. Do you ever have one of those dreams where you discover that where you live or have lived in the past, but you're like somehow in the dream still living there, has more rooms? And you're like, oh my god, there's like a whole like hallway in my home that leads to all these other rooms. We have this extra living room and bathroom and all these extra bedrooms. That's kind of what's happened here. I'm still living in the same flat that I've lived in since 2016, shortly before I started this podcast. But we now have a living room. Long story short, 2 people moved out, 1 person moved in. So that's basically what happened. There's nothing more extravagant than that. And oh, where do we begin? I haven't had the easiest time with this flat share due to maybe one of them, shall we say. Just because we weren't just all that compatible. I'm gonna be civil enough to say that, even though I've been woken up more nights than not in the past 3 years. So there's that. I started this flat share with 2 friends of mine, one from work and one from Norway, and we were all like, yeah, I don't like flat shares, I'm not a very social person. Good, me neither. Huh, maybe this could work. And it did, and we were really pleased with it. But as people move out in with their partners, people move in and they weren't always the best personality match. And some people are really social and like to have lots of people over at any hour of the day or night, regardless of if there's a pandemic or not, say. And I wasn't too pleased. So conflict happened, shall we say, and yeah, they decided to move. I've been feeling a lot like that for the past 3 years, that I just want to move, I just want to have some peace of mind, some quiet, you know. But I really love this apartment. I love this area. I just took a really nice walk out this morning and it's finally autumn. Just overnight it was just autumn. It's raining, there are leaves everywhere, and I took a walk down the Regent's Canal over to Victoria Park, which is a massive park in London that is just kind of, people forget because they're always like, oh, Hyde Park, but no, Victoria Park, guys. And I just love this neighborhood. So I didn't really want to move, I just didn't want to share with people I wasn't a very good match with. So when they decided to move, right? But then obviously the challenge is where you're gonna find people. Now, I happened to receive a message from someone I met in a knitting group that she was looking for a place to move at the exact same time that the contract was gonna expire. So I was like, well, okay, you got 1 person. But what if we reclaim the living room? Because honestly, during lockdown, we're going a little bit loopy, having just 1 room to hang out in, my bedroom. I'm sat in my bed all day, pretending it's a sofa, and then I go to bed in the same bed, and it's like, after like 7 months of that, you can't just start feeling some kind of way. It's not healthy. So I thought about it. Is it worth going up in rent, splitting it between 2 people instead of 3 people and get the living room back? You'd also expect to, you know, pay more for the bills, for the furniture that we need. And I decided, yeah, we should do that. But then I looked around the area and was like, you know what, people pay a lot less per room for the equivalent apartments that have living rooms. So I am gonna try to negotiate the rent with the landladies. And I didn't think it was going to work out, but it went a lot better than expected. They reduced the rent by more than I thought they ever would. And I am so grateful. So whilst I am paying a smidge more in rent than I used to, and obviously a bigger portion of the bills, we have a living room. And I live with a knitter, and she's like more than happy to let me use the living room to record. Is super considerate and quiet when I'm doing the recording, though there's nothing to do with the dog outside, obviously. There's always going to be that. But there's the balcony. We have the balcony door right here. We have a brand new sofa. I've been filling up this bookshelf that we used to use for a shoe rack. I've been filling it up with everything I got from Pom Pom, Lane, Kate Davies, Brother Garn, all my other like English language books, because hey, we are two people who could make use of those. So I am so happy with these changes. Like my neighbors are always like that. Oh, you look so happy now. I'm like, ah. Oh, squeaky chair. I did not move my office chair downstairs. That would be a bit much. So I'm just sitting on squeaky kitchen chairs. But oh, it's so good. And we have this. We went to IKEA and just picked up a lot of really gorgeous cushions and like a wall clock and like a floor lamp. It's just really nice. We also live close to a really cool flower market, so I bought a lot of plants. And I am a notorious plant killer, so that's gonna be interesting. But so far, they are alive. It's just been a week, but they are alive. Yeah, it's not very exciting, but I am just really, really happy. In fact, I actually had a nightmare last night that all of these changes were reverted, and it was like really upsetting, which kind of goes to show how happy I am about all these changes, because I really, really am. It's quiet. Like there's none of these like door slamming that wake me up at night. There is that dog. There is that. But I just have so much more energy. I just feel like it's worth going out for a walk in the morning, because I know that when I return home there is going to be that peace and quiet I need to recharge from having been out in the hustle and bustle of London. It's just really cool. I'm just really happy. So that leaves us with the PhD. Yeah. I had it finished, right? Last time I recorded, I told you guys I finished it. Like I finished it, and that means that I will have my supervisors read over it before I submit, and I had a month until the submission deadline. I was gonna be done this time around. Like everything looked like on my part, like it would be done. And I haven't looked at it since I said I was done. But neither have my supervisors. Because of Corona, basically, there's no surprise that it's that stupid pandemic again, because universities here are kind of the only thing that is really taking lockdown seriously. It's like technically there's no lockdown anymore, though there is one clearly coming. There was always going to be a second lockdown, and it's gonna happen. But anyway, universities really just stayed in lockdown, and that means that they have had to put in a lot of extra work to make the new term be completely online, with all online resources, online lectures, and obviously doing a little bit more than just putting the lectures up online and call it a day. And these are some of my supervisors' superpowers. So they have been very busy doing these things, and for that reason just don't have time to look at my thesis. So I could have taken the chance and just submitted it, but honestly I respect and trust their opinions on what my work is, and I don't maybe trust myself so much, so I decided to take their advice and postpone the submission again. Which I don't feel the same way about this particular extension than I have done for the previous ones, because the previous ones were to do with me and my ability / inability to do the work that had kind of burnt me out a bit, shall we say. So this time around I was actually fine. I had done what I was supposed to do. This extension is just a coronavirus extension that was beyond my control. So while it is very frustrating that I am not done, it will happen. within the next 3 months it will happen. And yeah, for now I am having a very nice break from it all. I am focusing a little bit more on Skeindeer Knits, as I said I would. Some more news coming on that front hopefully soon. I am working on something a little bit more technical behind the scenes than, you know, spoiler alert, I'm trying to set up a newsletter which should be very simple, but my brain is a bit fried from all these changes that have been happening in my life that I am very, very happy about, but nonetheless changes do wear on you a bit. So I've just been like hanging out in the living room that we now have just to kind of get used to everything. And yeah. And now it's raining again. We've had a lot of rain. There's been a lot of reasons to be indoors lately. So that's all the life changes happening here. It's quite a lot. I live with different people. The PhD wasn't as finished as I thought it would be. As of the time of recording this, my sister is still pregnant, but could give birth any day now, so that's exciting. I'm gonna be an auntie any day now, and I won't even get to be there about it. So those are all my life updates. I am very happy with how things are going. Just feeling a lot more at peace. Just not living with great sources of frustration has just made a huge difference. And yeah, just knitting and enjoying the cooler weather. It's all good. I hope you all are doing well as well. I hope to be able to produce a little bit more content now, but no promises. Just yeah, I'm gonna be working myself up slowly. I don't think there's any point in just like speeding right ahead again or whatever. That's not a phrase anyway. Without further ado, I hope you enjoyed this episode and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye.